I've no idea what day it is.
It's 8 p.m.
It's the Monday assessment.
Up the Gills!
Your people gather round your town when things are on the up or things are falling down. Celebrate the high times, stay passionate through the lows, find strength in the chaos, no matter which way it goes. It's not easy being blue. Heartbreak comes in many ways, the hardest times, the darkest days, but all these things get washed away with us, with us. The highs might not come every day, but memories do, and memories stay. Enjoy that moment anyway with us, with us, with us. It's not easy being blue. It's not easy being blue.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Monday Assessment, brought to you by the View from the Medway Fancast. We are sponsored by Snodhurst Used Car Sales Service Station and Wicked Creative, and in partnership with Sports Social Podcast Network and Her Game 2. No game for the Gills this week, so we're bringing you a Views News special. The show went down so well last year that we've done it again. Finances are out, and we've got our man Phil to come back on and go through the finances. We are also joined by Warren. How are we doing, boys?
Good evening, David.
Yeah, all good, thank you.
Evening,
Excellent.
Evening, Warren.
Excellent. As stated, Phil's come back. The show went down really well last year. Hopefully, he'll be able to clear up whether we should be panicking or whether we should not be panicking or whether we should be somewhere in the middle. I will hand you over to Phil now.
All right, thanks again for inviting me on, guys. It is appreciated. I'm probably about the only person who gets excited at this time of year when the club's accounts come out. But there you go. That's me being the geeky accountant. Before I get into like what we're going to talk about in terms of the 24-25 accounts, I thought I'd go back to this slide that I did a year ago, pretty much, where I said what I thought was going to happen in terms of the finances. So I didn't have a crystal ball, but it's quite a lot of ticks here, I think. So I mentioned that due to the situation we were in at the end of 23-24, it was highly likely that Brad's injection of cash into the club was going to have to continue, particularly off the back of the fact that we'd signed certain players in that summer, such as Nevitt, we'd signed Nolan, etc. All those top players at that time, it might be said, that were on free transfers, and therefore, if you think about it, a lot of them applying their trade up in the north to convince them to come down to sunny Kent was going to take a bit of money, I think. We also then, by that point, also knew that the legal costs around Up the Gills versus Mr. Scally were starting to kick off. So there was likely to be some of those costs potentially in these accounts. Mark Bonner departed. Therefore, his contract would have been paid up. So we've seen some of that cost going in these accounts. But there was also some positives. Obviously, Joe Comper stressed about the fact that shirt sales have been, a record, and that commercial deals in terms of sponsorship with the town end being sponsored and also the Raynham end, etc. All those bringing extra commercial revenue into the club. So that was my kind of prediction, and I think when we actually got the numbers come through back in the last week, and I did all my analysis on Twitter, as I call it. I don't call it X, I call it Twitter. A lot of this, I think, is quite fair to say has proven to be the case. So let's just look at what I've done as an analogy now for this 24-25 set of accounts. Then if we can do the next slide. So to try and make it a little bit easier for the non-accountants, I've used the analogy of doing a racing car and maybe trying to win the Formula One World Championship, maybe in terms of that analogy. So what we've done is, or what I think the club have done, particularly in the 24, 25, and the model to date, certainly has been that they've tried to deliver a high-performing, high-cost engine or vehicle to get them to their goal, and that's proven by the fact that we've done the most expensive per week wage bill in the club's history. That's not just in terms of the players, but that is obviously all staff. So per week is the most expensive squad, you could argue, in our history, even going back to the Championship days. But that is probably just due to the way that prices have increased in terms of everyone's wages, etc. Probably what you're paying for a top League 2 player now, you're probably paying per week for a Bob Taylor, maybe even back in the day. As we know from some of my tweets as well, that wage cost is actually now almost consuming nearly all of our turnover, 90%, which is really high. So when you're doing finance, a lot of public sector entities such as schools, the NHS, etc., everyone says you don't want to really go above 80%. Well, we were already above 80% last year. Now we're at 90%. I mean, some of that might have been a bit outside of the club's control. With obviously, I mentioned that turnover did drop a bit in the year in various forms, such as the school closing, etc. So, as much as the commercial revenues did really well and helped offset some of the loss in turnover, it didn't offset all of it. So they kind of been hit by a double-edged sword, really, with turnover dropping, but also wages increasing. I thought the most interesting post I did out of all my tweets was probably about who we spent nearly just over £250,000 on transfers for. From looking back at the articles that were released, there was 3 players that we paid undisclosed fees for in 24-25, and that was Jack Nolan, Nelson, who's sponsored by the show, and obviously Marcus Wiley. Now, I don't want to guess too much, but I'd like to be a betting man and say that probably Nelson and Marcus probably didn't take up too much of that £250,000. I imagine getting Jack Nolan out of Accrington after the season he'd had came at a price. And obviously we know what happened with Jack. So that was an interesting investment by the club. So that led to, overall, in terms of the whole year, that's led to that £5.7 million loss, which again is the biggest in the club's history since 1995, which is as far back as my records go. Just a caveat, I think you can get older records, but these are as far back as I've gone. So I've gone back to the start of the Scally era and beyond. So it seems like the club quite almost deliberately, I think, had, particularly in 23, 24 and 24, 25, this kind of strategy we're going to win at any cost. We're not worried about being sustainable. We're not worried about breaking even. Brad was putting the money in and, as I called it a year ago, chasing the dream of promotion. So, I think it's been deliberate, as much as people are concerned and nervous, and understandably, because it doesn't look good, does it, on paper? Brad's not doing this, I don't think, for fun. He's doing this because he wants to do it. I do think there's an element that he gets a little bit excited. I think Joe Comper kind of alludes to that sometimes, doesn't he? I think in some of his kind of interviews, etc., he's kind of said on a few occasions, we have to rein Brad in a bit, because he's like, well, let's do it. And we have to say to him, well, no, you've got to think about this, Brad, because he's new to English football and stuff like that. So I think sometimes Brad can get a little bit excited because he wants to do it and he wants to do the best by the club, and also us as fans, I think, to give him his due. So we'll just do the next slide. And then obviously we put in a lot of kind of resource into this racing car, shall we say, and as a result, that's causing some warning signs because, as I showed, the fuel, i.e. the cash, the bit that the business, the company, the football club has at the end of June was very, very low. It was £82,000 were in the bank. Well, based on the accounts, we were losing £110,000 every week. So that basically said, as the analogy is done on the infographic there, that the warning light really would be coming on and saying you're going to run out of cash in 7 days or less than 7 days, because if you're losing 110 grand a week, 82 grand ain't going to get you very far. So we are absolutely reliant on Brad injecting cash, and that's why he injected that £6.35 million worth of cash alone this year, or I should say in 24-25, split between loans and a donation. I don't know. There's nothing really that indicates why we're doing some of it as a donation, why some of it as loans. That maybe that's tax reasons. I don't know. I'm not a person who does tax in the US or anything like that, so I couldn't guess on that. I do know from the accounts is that he is tracking that donation amount separately, so that's going into another reserves pot in the account. So he is tracking that, which is interesting, but I can't provide a logical reason as to why that is. And therefore, over those 3 years since Brad came in, although part of that was with Mr. Scally around as well, he has put in nearly close to £11 million, whether that's loans, donations, or indeed just issuing of shares to him in terms of cash in 3 years, which is quite a phenomenal rate of money. And I can see why, as again, fans are nervous, and a lot of questions I think have been around about Brad saying that he, it's gone quiet. It's all gone quiet. Are they going to sell up? Are they going to do a runner? Or are they not invested? Or are they not bothered anymore? Well, he's got to be bothered, or he's got to be invested, because if he doesn't, based on these figures, the club will be in serious bother within a week. So he is invested. He is doing what he can for this club, but I think they've all taken a step back and gone, hang on a minute, we can't just keep hemorrhaging cash. We can't just keep going to the bank of Brad and ask him to write out another check. We've got to try and make this sustainable, and I think that's what they're all talking about with this sustainable vision. So I think it's pretty obvious from where we signed certain players over the last few years, all their contracts are going to come to an end this summer, and we can't do anything until then, really. I see lots of fans saying, well, let's get rid of them, clear them out. Well, you need someone to want to buy them. So they're not really selling themselves at the moment, are they? And two, if you're going to get rid of them, you've got to pay up their contract. Well, that costs more money, and we're paying them a load of money for nothing. So what would you rather, that we're paying them when they're actually playing, or do we just give them a load of money for no reason? That's what some fans seem to want and seems to be the answer. So I think Brad is around for long term. Again, the accounts are quite clear on that when it talks about going concern, which I defined last year, where I said about going concern, and I said that that's when an accountant or an auditor assesses whether you're going to be around in a year's time from the date you sign off the accounts. Well, the accounts were signed off just before Christmas, and they were given assurances by Brad that he's going to keep putting cash in to enable the club to still be around a year on from now. So he's definitely ain't going anywhere until this Christmas coming. Okay. I'd like to think beyond that as well. I think it's quite clear he's sticking around for the long term. And I think it was quite interesting that Joe Comper's come out in an article which hit Kent Online this morning, saying that fans maybe need to get off Brad's back. And I think there's a bit of truth in that. He's doing all he can financially for the best of the club. They're trying to make lots of good decisions. They're not just investing in players, they're investing in lots of things, aren't they? We've seen, investment in terms of the look of the club, how things are. We've got the fan zone now kicking off. He's trying to make it a place that we all want to go to, because I think it's fair to say the stadium, as well as the club and everything about it, was falling apart. He's trying to turn that ship around, but it's not going to be turned around as quickly, I think, as he thought it could be done. And I think that's where the realization has hit maybe him personally now. And that's kind of what I wanted to say, really. I didn't want to go into all my tweets because that's just me regurgitating what I've said. But I think, yes, it looks bad on paper, but as long as Brad's around, it's fine. Nothing to see here, so to speak, maybe. But I get it's not a sustainable model. And that's why some fans are up in arms. But that's what the club's now trying to achieve.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Phil. I said we've had a couple of questions come in on Twitter, which I'll read to you. And then, Warren, if you've got any questions to ask Phil, we'll do that after the Twitter questions, if that's all right. So the first question we had was from Luke on Twitter @Naylor94. Said, "Hi Phil, would you be able to answer if construction costs were included anywhere? I couldn't find anything in there as improvements were made to players' lounge, changing rooms, offices, and closing of the school classroom. Would this have been under administrative costs?"
Yes and no is the non-clear answer to that. It depends what the club has as what I call capitalisation policy. So when you buy or do certain works, you can what's called capitalise them. So effectively you say it's a fixed asset and you bring it onto your balance sheet, and for tax purposes you can claim capital allowances and all that kind of stuff against them, which is quite a good way of saving tax. But because we're making such significant losses, tax is irrelevant here. When you look at the accounts, in terms of fixed assets, the club invested £38,000 worth, and that's pretty much split 50-50 between computer equipment and fixtures and fittings. So it's probably the fixtures and fittings element that would be maybe some work to player lounges and that kind of area. But equally, it could be in the administrative costs as well. It depends how they've decided to treat it. So there's no quite clear answer there. But yeah, I mean, even they have done a lot there. I mean, I'm one of the fans who's gone and done one of the tours where you do go in that building at the end of the Medway stand, and it looks vastly different. You can still kind of see what it kind of was like, because it's not necessarily perfect, but they have done a lot of knocking walls down and putting partitions up and all sorts of stuff like that. It's quite clear they've tried to change it as a culture model within that building so that everyone feels part of one club. And particularly the changing rooms, I think that may or may not be in these sets of accounts. It's one of those things that probably happened in the summer, and whether it happened before the end of June or after, who knows. But the change rooms have had quite a significant revamp as well in terms of walking in them. They look now like something in the Premier League, in all honesty. And that, again, was something that Gareth wanted. Gareth wanted to change how that changing room was and looked and felt. And that was made quite clear on the tour that was something he wanted. So again, and Joe was quite clear. They cancelled Como because they wanted to do some investment. They wanted to put their money into some bricks and mortar, so to speak, rather than having a jolly over in Como.
Perfect. And we got one more. Was from Gills Greg @ME8 Gills. I think you've answered part of this, but there is an extra bit at the end. So as long as Brad and co are happy to bankroll the club, should we as fans be that concerned about what the accounts say? If we're allegedly looking to spend 200,000 on a player, it doesn't seem like we've reached the point of not being able to keep the lights on.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my tweets the other day was, how deep are Brad's pockets? Answers on a postcard, please. Obviously, when Brad first came on the scene, there was lots of rumours around his estimated worth. Who knows whether that's true or not? Anyone who's got contacts over in the US, I don't think I've got much to know about his wealth. He obviously keeps things very private in terms of all that. But yeah, the fact that if the rumours are true, we are looking to spend 200k on a player, maybe even more now based on what's come out in the last 24 hours. And that's going to come out of Brad's pocket. As simple as that. It's not going to come out anywhere else. You know, but the club are that will be a Brad decision. Only he will make that decision as to whether he's going to fund that. That's not Joe Comper or Hess or someone putting a gun to his head. At the end of the day, Brad's going to write the check. So that will be his decision based on, yes, in what he's been told and stuff. But if Gareth's saying, I need this player, he's going to revolutionise my forward line, you've got to back him, haven't you? Surely. So that's why when a few fans are going, oh, this player isn't good enough, I'm a bit like, we don't know, do we? I've seen a video clip of him. It looks quite a handful. So the proof will be in the pudding if we sign him, won't it? Or someone else does. But yeah, I don't think there's a room. All the time they're around, there's nothing to panic about. We've seen this in lots of other accounts, don't we, across other clubs. Salford's a great example, isn't it, over the years, where we saw the class of 92 piling in millions of pounds worth of cash. It all keep going until they do get bored, effectively, or they decide to sell up or something like that. That's when things will change drastically. But I think based on their ethos, their values, I don't think they'd just walk away and leave us in the lurch. I truly do not believe that. I think they'd look to sell and sell appropriately and keep us afloat until that point.
Warren, did you have anything you wanted to ask Phil?
Yeah, I've got loads.
Oh,
Right, I'm just going to read off some of your tweets. First one, Phil, you put in one of your tweets that we actually received a clean audit report. Bear in mind that the last 2 years had seen negative ones due to various reasons. What does that actually mean?
okay. So when a set of accounts are produced, they have to be audited. Okay, that's part of the rules with football clubs. Okay, and various other entities depending on their size, etc., which I won't get into. So what the auditors have to do, they have to come out and they're given like some figures, like turnovers this, administrative costs of this, wages of that, the cash in the bank's this, the value of our debts is this, etc. All right. And what the auditors have to do, they have to come in and validate whether those figures are what they call true and fair, i.e., are they wildly out or are they pretty much on the money? Are they accurate? And they have a tolerance level with that, which is called materiality. Okay. So they have an allowance as to whether it's a few £1,000s out, let's say. Provided everything's all okay and they don't find anything that they don't significantly disagree with, then they will issue a clean audit report. Now, the last 2 years, what had happened was, and this kind of coincided with Brad coming in as well, was stock was one of the issues. So stock has got a value in the accounts, i.e. the stock that's in the shop ready to sell. It's got selling value, okay? And what they have to do as auditors, if they have to come in and verify that, if you say you've got 20 home shirts that on the 30th of June, they have to come in and check that you've got 20 home shirts. They effectively do a stock count. They verify what you've said is in stock is there and that the value's right. Now, because they changed auditors and there was all this a bit of hoo-ha that was going on at the time, the auditors couldn't actually do that work. So therefore, they have to say in their report, look, this figure's in the accounts, but we actually can't verify it because we couldn't come out and check it all. So that was one of the other issues. That was one of the issues. And then there's a few invoices missing relating to repairs and maintenance work, I think was the comment in the account, in the audit report previously. And I won't say anything more on that just in case I end up in court.
Right. So with all this in mind, and you've got records going back to 95.
Yeah.
Would you say that some of the auditing has been a little more under the table than above the table?
That'd be difficult for me to say.
Yeah, I get that.
There's so many, as an ex-auditor myself, there's so many different permutations that could lead to that happening. So, in all, I couldn't honestly say.
So, what you're saying is there's a lot of variables,
Yeah.
right, in the account, the way the accounts have been done at a football club. Could you see this be one of the reasons why the Gallinsons are taking Scully to court?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I think there's it's clear from the stuff that is online in terms of comments around previous accountants that there were some treatments that weren't applied that should have been applied to the accounts, and if they had been, Brad and Shannon would have maybe have, been able to see how much it was going to cost them. I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I look at our staff costings.
Yeah.
Do you believe that if, say, someone like myself, when I was a manager, probably the only forte I had was looking at people and what they did and how to get even the best out of them, more work out of them, or completely lose the job altogether. Do you think that we should be making changes to our staff costings, judging by the figures? Because you said it's 90% of our income is going out on.
Yeah. I mean, based on what we certainly should be trying to recoup the income losses we've had, certainly, and I think the club is trying to do that. But sometimes you need to invest to enable that. So, for example, the fan zone, I think I mentioned that, they're investing in that. I don't know if that's all going to be club cost, or I know Shep and Nima have been linked with that, so they might be footing some of that bill. But it's hoped that going forward, that's going to create a lot of revenue. In terms of players, then I think we'll. I mean, isn't Joe on record as saying nearly £500,000 of budget has been slashed already this year?
Yeah, as I say, it's a big cost. I mean, I just look at someone like I called him the gaffer, Hessenthaler's job as head of recruitment, right? If I was to sit with him for a whole week and go through his 40 hours, what would I find? What sort of work would I find him doing in 40 hours? I go back probably to the old days when you had one manager, possibly an assistant, and one physio. Now you look at our bench and we've got about 400 people on it. And I just look at it and I think, what does each person do to warrant a wage of? I would imagine that all those that are on the bench at least 40 grand plus a year, and then you've got your top end of your head of recruitment and whatever, the analyst and whatever, who are probably on 70, 80 grand minimum. I just think, do you think we could cut some of those costs to bring in line our spending?
Maybe. I think the club's actually quite good. I think some of the roles that we've got in the club that, as you say, are probably the more long distance ones in the background, like I think analysts and stuff like that. I think a lot of those, or in even in the medical area, I think quite a few of them, the club historically the last few years have got them like student placements or fresh out of university, and then they've gone on to get jobs at other clubs with the club's blessing, etc. So we've almost been like a teaching environment for people getting into football to some extent. So they won't be on a lot of money at all, those people. I generally believe, as I go back to earlier when I talked about players coming in that maybe predominantly have been based up north, you've got to convince those people to come down to Kent. Yes, it is sunny, but they've got to leave their families, they've got to travel up motorways, etc. And the way it works now in football, I know, Warren, your opinion will be, well, if you want to play football, you do it. But it's not how it works now, is it? Sadly, it's money talks, sadly, for some of these players. And if it means you're going to pay them an extra £1,000 a week to spend another 2 or 3 nights away from their family and their little kids, then that's what you've got to pay them to convince them to come, sadly. And when your position has been lower in the league, as it has been, you almost having to pay more to do that now, potentially.
I've got one more question, Bill. And this is the most concerning one for myself. Was the 82 grand that we had left in the bank at the end of the season, and obviously our losses or our outgoings are over 106k a week. Does that worry you in the fact that when we was audited, we only had £82,000 in the bank cash as our cash flow?
Yeah, it does a little bit. Some of it, sometimes it's just timing. So, and depends what's going on at the time. So, as I say, that amount of cash was at the 30th of June. 5 days before that, we might have had 300 grand sat in the bank account. Maybe a couple of bills literally went out in those 5 days. You don't know, is the thing. It's very much a snapshot at that point in time on that specific day. But historically, really, our cash levels have never been amazing. I'm literally looking at my little spreadsheet now in the left corner of my screen, and like we've averaged, I would say, about 300-400 grand. So, okay, 82 seems really low, and I said it is the second lowest ever since 95. But when you then compare to our average being 300 to 400, is it that significant? It just looks worse because of what I said. We're losing on average cash a week. That's the way it gets scary, but it could literally be just a snapshot in time. The next day, a load of money could have come into the bank account.
I mean, my concern, Phil, would be that with 82k in the bank on the 30th of June, where we're selling season tickets at that time, and we should be getting a substantial cash flow into the building, only having 82k is a little bit of a worry for me, and I know nothing about accountancy.
Agreed. Because, but then again, how much of the club's supporters actually now take up the club's offer of paying for season ticket on credit? I don't know. Obviously, if they get that, the club should get then the finance up front from the finance company, because that's how it works. But that could be an issue. We don't know. It's that timing element, which I have to stress. But I agree with you. Yeah, logic says this is a perfect time when actually cash should be pretty high because we've got season ticket money flooding in, etc. Or maybe we've released a new kit, shirt sales are flying, etc. But equally, it's a time of year, summer, when we're doing renovations to the ground, the pitch, etc., that are more significant than maybe during the season. So you've got that offset as well with cash outlay. So without me, I'd love to sometimes, there's elements of me, I would love to work in the club for a week and just see, because it would fascinate me, or even audit it. It would fascinate me. But
I get that, Phil. And there's plenty of things like, for me, I'd like to spend a day or a whole week with each member of staff, seeing what they can and can't do, or what they don't do or don't do, and whether how much of their money are they actually earning, dependent on expertise. I mean, of fully qualified physios, you can't skimp on them with footballers due to injuries, but do we need as many as we got?
I think one interesting thing I would say is, in my personal opinion, I actually think in terms of the back office staff, I actually think we're a bit light on bodies. When you look at certain people, when you look at the program and it says all that, some of their roles, like there's a couple of people, like they're doing literally everything. They're doing the accounts, they're doing commercial work, they're doing the PA system at half time when we've all got our fingers in our ears. You know, they're doing a bit of everything because they obviously love the club and they're prepared to roll the sleeves up and get stuck into stuff. But that indicates to me we're a few bodies light in that department. So you could argue, where is the balance right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm looking at. Is the balance right from the high earners to the low earners? And are the low earners not getting enough help to elevate the club going forward? Where some of the big earners that are taking money out of the club year on year, right, on very good wages, are they actually earning the wages? I mean, I'd love to spend a day or a week with, as I said, the Andy Hessenthaler, see what he's actually doing. How does the recruitment role work? What's he doing every day? Because I don't get it. Right? Yeah, he may go out 3-4 games a week, but that's a couple of hours out of his day. I wouldn't imagine he goes into the office on them days and does an 8-hour shift. So that's where I am with that. But really appreciate you answering the questions, Phil. And I'm sure Gillingham fans as a whole appreciate your more common approach to accounts rather than the gobbledygook that we get from football clubs and those people lending their mouthpiece to it. So thank you for that. So
no problem.
I just want to now go on to the fan zone. Now we spoke about fan
Warren,
zone.
quickly. There's a question come in that I don't know if you can all see it from Doug. I don't know if Phil could answer that before we move on to the fan zone.
Sorry. What's on? Actually, yes, it is as simple as that. If you want to break even, then you'd have to grow your turnover to £13 million to get to a break-even position. My comment would be a bit similar to what Warren's just alluding to. To grow your turnover to that kind of level, you're probably going to need some extra bodies to help deliver that in whatever form it's going to come in. So you're going to need to invest in some more cost potentially. So therefore, you need then more turnover to outweigh that. So it'd be lovely to go, we need another near on £7 million to break even, but you need something to help generate that. It's not just going to grow on a tree. But the logical maths answer is yes.
Cheers, mate. So I want to go on to the fan zone, and you alluded to this during your accounts update. Do we think that this fan zone is actually going to make money? And I'll ask David first, right? Because I'll give you a break, Phil, from talking, right?
Thank you.
And standing there looking in the mirror at your haircut.
I'm reading the accounts.
I've got you know. So, David, what do you think of the fan zone? Do you think it will make the money that I think the football club are expecting out of it?
I think for it to do that, they've got to use it properly. They can't just use it to shift money from behind the Rainham end and the factory to just another location, because otherwise you're just going to be making the same money, but pulling the pint off of a different pump. They need to hopefully be opening it up on potentially when Gills are away. I don't know if they can put TVs up, and there's ways they can do things to show games during the World Cup in the summer, have it as an attraction. Because things you've got to bear in mind, the football season, for the majority of the season, it's blooming freezing. So I don't know what the plans are for shelter, heating and stuff, because are you going to drink a pint outside when you can go in the factory and it's warm? So for me, I love the idea of it, because I've been to some fan zones at some grounds where we go to, and I think they really work. I just hope that now it's signed off and it's underway, that they're going to use it correctly to make money. And as I said, you can't just have someone decide not to go in the factory and go to the fan zone, because like I said, you're not actually making any more money there. You're just moving a pint from one place to another.
Yeah, I get that. Phil, with the opening times of the fan zone that they've announced during the week, where they're finishing at 9, starting at 12, finishing at 9, who is actually going to use it for those times? It's not as if it's in the middle of a thriving high street or near a high street or a thriving industrial estate.
No, I wonder if they're thinking about the business community and an area for them to do networking events or something like that, potentially. So I go along to the club's business club event that they do, because I'm a sponsor, and that's all done in the Great Hall. But particularly when the weather is nicer, spring, summertime, people might want to do some sort of outdoor space, and that'll be quite something a bit quirky, a bit different, and maybe someone might want to hire it for that kind of event, with the drinks, etc., and all that stuff included. So you would be surprised. People in terms of businesses and networking are always on the lookout for something that's a bit different from the normal of just meeting in a room, and that would certainly provide that. So I'd like to think the club are looking at that as an thing to do during the day. So that would certainly do something, but not every day, is it? So,
yeah. I mean, my biggest concern is the marquee covering, and how that's going to affect business. But if we'd have built an actual outbuilding and used it as possibly a social club, redefine the factory as a nightclubby type thing, I don't know. But with the space that they've got there, I'd have liked to have seen a social club built where people can go in and have a drink every day. Now, people are not going to go out between 7 and 9 and say at 9 o'clock you've got to go home now, because it is in the middle of nowhere. For me, I'd like to have seen them use darts, which is now an up and coming sport. They could have built a small dart centre there where people could have come and played darts 5-6 nights a week, introduced it as a community place for youngsters to come and play darts and whatever and charge. I don't know. I just think it's been quite shallow, and I can't see it making as much money as the football club think.
So do you think an outbuilding a bit like the one at Newport?
Yeah. I just think it needed, you need something different, and I just don't think with street food out of shipping containers is going to quite cut it. I really don't. I can't see myself coming from where I live over at the football ground between the hours of 12 and 9 to either have a pint or have some street food. It's not going to happen.
I think it'll work. 100% it'll work for the tournaments and all that kind of stuff, won't it? There's no doubt. The World Cup in Europe, that'll be perfect for that.
Well, yeah, because then they'd have, but all depends on what time the licenses fill. Because their games are at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So, or England games are. I mean, you're looking at noise around the surrounding area. Will you get a license to open that late? Blah, blah, blah. Now, I don't think the license will be a problem, because I think the government will allow extra licenses, but will it then create a hostile atmosphere with the local community, with people having had a drink, going out at 1 o'clock in the morning when the game finishes?
You could argue they'd have had the same issue though with the factory, though, wouldn't you? If they're going to forget the fan zone for a minute, if they're going to do the same thing with the factory, open that during the World Cup, then they'd have had the same issue. So, yeah,
I agree, but I think the fan zone would be, you'd be able to fit a lot more in than what you would the factory.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To be honest, and if you've got a giant screen in the fan zone, then people are going to go and watch it.
Do you think there's a fear that, again, going against what I've just said, that it could end up fans just go to the fan zone and then the factory almost becomes
obsolete?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. I
if it's heated well and they've got everything there, do you think, because especially when maybe the first year when it's new, you may see sales in the factory drop dramatically, but I'm sure every time I saw a comment come in that the factory is quite busy a lot of the time, so it will mean that you won't have to queue. But my worry is, that you could have people just go to the fan zone and then there's 2 or 3 bar staff in the factory just twiddling their thumbs.
I mean, one of my arguments is that we never provide anything for away fans, and they go and drink at the Fleur de Lis, right, up the road, which is not exactly a great advert for Gillingham Town Centre. And I don't know about anyone else when they go away, but I spend quite a lot of money in bars. And if if I go to a place where I can drink at the ground as such, that's where I spend my money. Wouldn't the football club have been better off spending a little bit on something behind the away end where away fans could go and drink and spend the money at Gillingham Football Club rather than up the road?
Some fan zones at grounds are open to home and away fans. I don't. Again, I'm not sure if I've seen anything to say whether if it's definitely home fans only or whether away fans are allowed to come in. Because the one at Colchester is home and away, isn't it?
It's definitely home fans at Factory.
I just don't see the location lending itself to having away fans in at the back of the Rainham, to be honest. I just think it's a bit ill thought out, a bit rushed, rather than actually gauging opinion on what could or couldn't have worked in the fan zone. But that's my own opinion. We'll move on. And I want to talk about Joe Dunn. It was announced last week that Joe was leaving the club, which pretty much upsets me because I think Joe Dunn is probably the nicest bloke that's ever played for the Gillingham Football Club. And I'm sorry to see him go, especially as the youth team have got to a later round in the FA Youth Cup than they normally do. We've had a few youngsters appear on the bench and come through recently. And I think it's good for our youth team. And I'll go to you, David. What do you think made Joe leave the club? Because it's not been made clear, I know he's been given another opportunity somewhere, but it's not been announced where he's going or what he's doing or whatever.
I would guess he's obviously been given the opportunity at a higher level. Could be closer to home, potentially, well, more than likely more money. And I think a club of our size in League Two, you almost have to see it as a compliment, and it shows the job that he was doing, that potentially a club at a higher level have come in and took him. I think we're lucky that we've still got Mark Patterson and Brian Ball are still there, because I think we actually did a whole section on the youth team not long ago, and first time in a long time we're actually blooding quite a few of these in like the Virtue Trophy stuff. So the youth team are definitely doing well, and obviously Joe's reaped the rewards of that and got himself a move to a bigger club, and whoever that is, hopefully one day we'll find out, and I'm sure we will. But yeah, I think he's done a great job, and yeah, wish him all the best, because Joey Dunn is number one.
Yeah, so Phil, do you think it's strange that he's left at this point in the season in January rather than wait until the end of the season?
No, I don't think it matters too much with that, with the youth side of things. I think it's more common that people leave now mid-season and stuff like that. I don't think it's as unusual as before. I mean, I've just pulled up his little statement that is on the kind of foot of the advert for the role, and it just says, "A new opportunity has presented itself, and it's an opportunity for me to learn about younger players at a different level." So that does sound to me like he's moving up the ladder potentially in perhaps a slightly different role, and that's clearly excited him maybe, or he's been headhunted even, as Dave kind of alluded to. So yeah, it's sad. Don't get me wrong. I agree with you, Warren. He gets the club. It's always nice when we've got someone who gets the club, working with our kids and looking after and developing. And he's clearly done well in lots of youth club roles at other clubs. But for me, it happens. It's sad, but it happens.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I would just like to wish Joe all the best wherever he's going. I hope it's, personally, I hope he's got an opportunity to work with the Republic of Ireland squad, maybe. As long as it's not a sideways move and it's an upward move, I wish him all the best. But I just think it's strange that he's suddenly gone, and the wording that's come out hasn't been exactly foolproof. So I'll move on to Compa's comments now. Over the last week or so, we've had Joe release a few statements and come out in support of the Gallinsons. I'll go to you, Phil. What do you think Joe has done over this past week, and why he's done it? Why has he done it?
In twofold. One, the accounts was coming out, So I think it's linked to what they say and what they show. I think it's linked to he will know what's been said on social media the last week or two around player signings and all that kind of stuff. And I think he's just trying to manage expectations around all that. He's trying to get some communications out there about what we should or should not be expecting this window. I think that's his ultimate game. And I think he's probably seen some comments about the Gallinsons losing interest or anything like that, and maybe a few people questioning them. I don't think there's been too much of that, but there has been a little bit, I think. I think he's just defending them really because someone say he's just kissing arse, he's employed by them, blah, 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 blah. But I just don't think that's the culture at the club. Don't think it's a kiss arse culture. I think they're a bit of a family, in all honesty. And he's just saying, look, these are nice people. They're doing their best by the club. I think that's what he's trying to say.
Yeah, I'll go to you, David. His comment that this season's basically dead. Do you think that was a prelude to what we're going to do in our transfer window this year?
I hope not. I didn't like that. I don't like writing seasons off because we're not actually, even though our form would say differently, we're not that far off the playoffs still to write off a season. And us fans that pay to travel to away games, go to home games, don't want your MD writing off a season. So I didn't like that. But I a bit like what Phil said, the rest of it wasn't really a surprise. With obviously he's going to back the Gallinsons and rightly so. And yeah, the timing of the stuff didn't surprise me, but I wouldn't be vocalising writing seasons off because especially when you've won 1 in 18, you want to get the fans on side. You don't want to be giving them reason to come back at you.
As much as he said that, I don't believe Gareth's thinking that. And that's the more important person for me.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a chicken and egg comment. I think he tried to play down expectations, but he played them down too much that people like myself got the hump with it. With his support of Gallinsons, I totally agree with him. We should be behind Brad and Shannon. I think they've done marvellous for this football club, especially the amount of money that they've put in to keep us going. Things have changed. I feel sorry for them that the players and some of the managers that they've appointed have let them down a little bit. I don't think Gareth going off sick helped us this year. I think that was something that was beyond their control. Yes, there are.
I think that was why it became a 2-year plan as well.
Yeah,
I think that and the contracts, they're the two key factors why this is 2 years.
Yeah, I get that. And as I say, in the summer, if we get rid of a lot out of contract to bring a load in, we're still going to have to pay out a lot of money if we're going to have a lot of Northern-based players come down to Gillingham for next year, as you alluded to in your finance comments. I just think that at the moment supporters are expecting too much, and the players need to give a little bit more, personally, than what they have been. So I'll go on to the rally cries now. On social media, I've seen a few players, Amani Little, Jake Turner, Robin McKenzie, coming out on social media saying, yeah, we're all together as one. We are striving to get it right, blah, blah, blah. What do you think of this sudden 2-week burst of players being on social media saying how good it is, David?
They should have been doing. They should have been doing this all season. It's not to quote Roy Keane, but it's their job, isn't it? They're paid to play football. They shouldn't need to come out and give rallying cries. We should know that as soon as they sign for this club, that every time they step out on the pitch, they're going to be giving their best. we don't need free players in their press conferences to tell us that they're training well and they're doing that. It's part of what they should be doing all the time. And just because they're had a 2-week break with no games, they don't. To me, they're not fooling me with those type of comments. It's stuff that said we should be expecting that, and the proof of being the pudding comes Saturday. Because again, if you're going to cherry pick a game that you probably want as a home game, this is one that you would probably pick. So they've got their chance now to see what it's all about, because they've got a team fighting for their lives coming to Priestfield. That they're going to be giving everything. And again, if you're going to cherry pick, you pick a team near the bottom. We've got that. And yeah, let's see if they're saying anything next week after 3 points, or if they're having to say something after another draw.
Which leads me on to my next question to Phil. Do you think these rallying cries would be worth more while if some of these voices were heard on the pitch?
Yeah, maybe.
Other than outside of a match day?
Yeah, I mean, the one that used to wind me up the most was back when promotion bids in League One hit the buffers, didn't it, with that year under Justin Edinburgh. And I think after nearly every game, Josh Wright would tweet, "We go again." I was like, Jesus Christ, how many more times are we going to go again? Yeah, it's one of those. I think it's one of those things that's just in football these days. Players come out and feel they've got to say so. I wonder if it's again all linked to they're seeing the stuff on social media, seeing maybe a bit of criticism around the leadership and the ownership of the club, and they're maybe just trying to, it's on us. We're going to sort this out and all this kind of stuff, which is great, but actions mean more than words for me. They always have done, regardless of any players or anything. So I'd rather just see it on the pitch than what they say they're going to do.
I don't know about you two, but when these players were giving their rallying cry, did you actually think they really meant it? What they were saying?
I'm sure they would have gone in. I don't think it would have been scripted, but I do think they probably would have been told to say things in a certain way. Again, to get us back on side. They know for a fact that come Saturday, we're craving a game, even though our form's been terrible. It's not often really during a season you go nearly 2 weeks without going to a game. So they know that we're craving to come back to the ground, and they're just going to say some stuff to make us think, everything's going to change. And yeah, as I said, it's down to them to prove their point.
It's a bit cliche. It's cliches, isn't it? It's the classic football cliches. That's why Ruben Amorim at Man United was kind of loved by the press, because he wouldn't do cliches. He'd come out with all these mad comments that are brilliant for the back pages and stuff. But what I'm hearing is just typical football cliches that you hear any manager say, any player say. I'm like I say, rather see the actions.
I'd rather players come out and be blunt and say, yeah, we've had some trouble in the dressing room. We're trying to sort it out. We are together. We've had our heads knocked together, and we're going to crack on and do the best we can for this football club, rather than, we're all together. Everything's wonderful in our world. Because we know it ain't. And it annoys me that in football, there's so much crap comes out of people's mouth, right, when they're doing interviews and they're doing these rallying cries and whatever. Just be honest. Just say it how it is for once in your lives, and I'd have more respect. So, for me, they're pointless because it meant absolutely nothing. So, I'll hand you back to David.
Yes, let's look ahead to that game at the weekend. As stated, we are back at Priestfield this week, welcoming Newport County. Gills' form is draw-loss, draw-loss, and Newport's form is loss-loss, drawn, one lost. So it's got a classic written all over it. I'll come to you, Phil, first. As we've stated now, we've had a couple of weeks off. Are you expecting some changes to the starting lineup now that some players that have been out injured, your Glenn Morrises, your Connor Mastersons, have now had an extra 2 weeks of training? Are we expecting wholesale changes, or do you think it'll be much like the last game?
No, I think there will be some changes. I think. I think Gareth. I don't think Gareth's really quite sussed out what his preferred formation is at the moment. I think because I know you guys have spoken about a lot about 3 at the back and 4 at the back and all this kind of stuff, but I feel that he's still not really sure on what his best formation is or even his best 11 is. I think he's still figuring it out because he's had so many chopping and changing with injuries and suspensions or whatever. I truly don't think he actually knows what his best 11 is. So I'd like to think that the last 2 weeks has given him an opportunity to get everyone back fit and he can go. And I'd like to see him just go, right, I'm picking my best 11 on Saturday. Let's go for it. Because this is the first time I've had a chance to do that. I think you're going to see Masterson start, for example, and stuff like that. So I think, it will be.
And Warren, 2 questions before you give your insight on what you think we're going to do. Do you think we will be playing 3 at the back come Saturday? And is this a must-win game?
Every game is a must-win game now, from now to the end of the season. If you want to win, if you want to get in the playoffs, or even if you go to the point where you don't want to start flirting with relegation, even though I think we're a long way away from that, but we still haven't got the magic amount of points yet. I still think we need to win at least 5 between now and the end of the season. Newport are a bit of a bogey side, so I don't hold out much hope. Just see a 0-0 come up there. Thank God for that. Thank God for that, because I ain't going, so I've got to work Saturday, so I'll miss this one.
It'd be nice if we can do more than 45 minutes of good football, wouldn't it? If we could do an hour, that'd be good.
Oh, don't get me started, Phil. I could be rambling on here for months talking about football in the good old days. Football's boring now. There's no getting away from it. It's boring, right? If I was to start watching a game this week, next week, in the last few weeks, would I invest 53 years in it? No, probably not. But I have, and I will continue to do so because I am invested. I think he'll play 5 at the back. I don't think he's got. I think he's too scared of losing, just like every other manager.
But what does that say? What does that say, that you're playing the team near the bottom and he's going to potentially go in with 3 centre halves?
I just think it's the modern way, Dave. Right? I think managers are more too scared to lose than they're brave enough to win in this modern day football. When was the last time? I'll ask each of you. When was the last time you went out, watched the Gillingham game, and no matter what the result, you came away thinking that was a bloody good game of football from both teams?
From both teams?
From both teams. That was a really good game of entertaining, attacking football.
Oh, attacking football? I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, but both teams. I mean, the Crawley 2-2 was quite a good game. Both teams both went at each other a bit, and I'd say the Chesterfield game at the start of the season was quite good as well. But attacking out and out, I mean, yeah. I mean, I love the days when I know I'm going back now. Gang of 4, yeah. If we were losing or drawing, we'd take off a defender, we'd bring McGlashan on, we'd play this formation that didn't even look like a formation. And we just said, right, we're going to have a go here and try and win. And lo and behold, 9 times out of 10, we bloody won under that lot.
Yeah, I agree, Phil. I just think that where football's become too robotic and too defensive, because managers are so scared to lose their jobs now, that football's just not entertaining. I can't see Gillingham v Newport Saturday being an end-to-end attacking game of football.
No.
Now, if Gillingham ain't winning, I want to see an entertaining game of football. no matter what. But it's just this. We're just so slow in everything that we do. We don't pass the ball quick enough. We don't move up the pitch quick enough. We don't. Our defence are too deep, and it's all this. Oh, we're scared to lose type thing, and we've got to have two central defensive midfield players, and we can't play with two wingers because of the formation that we play. So we're never going to get at fullbacks. We play one up front because we're just going to lump the ball to the lone man up front and try and live off scraps. It's boring.
Well, let's hope it's not. We move on to the next bit now. So, as we said at the start, you can follow us on Facebook, The View from the Medway. Also on Twitter or X, The View from the Medway Fancast, at TVFTM. And we're also on YouTube, The View from the Medway Fancast. We are sponsored by Snodhurst Used Car Sales and Service Station and Wicked Creative, and in partnership with Sports Social Podcast Network and Her Game 2. So before we go, is there anything anyone wants to say in any other business? And Phil, is Emma anything to do with you from them comments?
Yeah, she might be, yeah.
I thought it might have been one of your mates trying to wind
One of
you up.
my mates has got the hots for my wife, so... Yeah.
Oh, there we go again. So is there anything you want to say before we go, guys?
No, just thanks for having me on yet again. Appreciate it for you giving me the platform to try and make things a bit more understanding, a bit more easier for everyone who is a Gills fan. So thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you to Phil, because with his Twitter and coming on the show, he makes things a little bit more simplified for people like me who's got absolutely no idea on accountancy and whatever. And quite often I ask Phil a question privately and he'll always answer me. So thanks for coming on, Phil. Do appreciate it.
No worries.
Yeah. And thank you, Phil. Yeah. Hopefully we can get you on for an actual game rather than having to wait once a year for you to go through your slides. But I hope everyone enjoyed that. We will be back on Monday, 8 p.m. normal time to go over an actual game. Obviously, the Newport game, Chris will be back. We will announce the panel in the coming days. Thanks again for listening, and up the Gills.
Up Gills.
The view from the Medway.